Beep, 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 beep. Welcome to the Court of the Jester. How are we all? One is ready with tea. What week? Children identifying as cats, the moon, and what is wrong with these people? I think it's them taking the mickey. I think they've sussed how nonsense all this crap is and they've taken the mickey out of it. If not, I said on Twitter, and I'll say it again here, I'm more than happy to treat a child as if they're a cat, if they can demonstrate that they are by putting their left leg behind their ear and licking their own bum piece. At that point, I'll start calling them tiddles, right? That's up to them. What have we got for you today? Well, I've been sent lots of stuff. This is what's interesting, thank you folks. I've been sent lots of stuff, but particularly stuff by my warrior teachers who are like, you have to see this, you have to see this, you have to see this. It's been kind of never ending. So I don't know whether it's been the same for all of you, but it's been very busy. There seems to be an awful lot coming in and an awful lot going on. So what have we got? Well, here's one for you. Let's start with this because I think it's quite an important one. And I'll cover this on this session and then I'll do a couple more that follow on the stuff that I've recently been sent because I think that makes life interesting, okay? So first off, we've got something called the bulletin.org. Now, I don't know about you, good people of this country, good people of the globe, but when it comes to things like building nuclear power stations, okay, or anything nuclear, which quite frankly, if you've ever seen the China syndrome or Chernobyl, is probably one of the scariest words in the world. You can whisper, you could go, nuclear, in somebody's ear, and they sort of semi-shout themselves before you even start the conversation, right? It's a scary, bloody world. Arundhati Roy wrote about nuclear years ago. I'm going back a bit now, fine writer. Saying, and I always remember the last line of the essay being, I'll never forgive them for taking away my want to survive. And on the other hand, some would argue, nuclear has kept us from the brink of destroying each other on a mass scale ever since. But really, when it comes to understanding the world in which we live, I would say that nuclear's a pretty hot potato, wouldn't you? In which case, I'm very surprised to find from the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. This is like someone out of a 1950s dystopian science fiction. Queering nuclear. Yes. Yes. Before you lambast yourself for being befuddled. You heard it correctly. Queering nuclear weapons. There are. That's the next bit. That makes it even scarier. They're going to queer nuclear weapons. How LGBTQ plus inclusion strengthens security and reshapes disarmament. Do you want to sit down? Just sit down. Take a seat. I know, it's worrying. By Louis Reitman and Sneha Nair. This is from June 15th. Right. I'm so sorry, but this is unreal. How LGBTQ plus inclusion strengthens security and reshapes disarmament. They should not allow mentally ill people near weapons of mass destruction. Well, I would say that that's a fairly strong conclusion. Thank God these people have never seen a Bond film. That was one of the dozens of derogatory tweets that the Vienna Centre for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation received in response to a December 2022 panel discussion, to which there is a link. I just can't. On LGBTQ plus identity in the nuclear weapons space. Did the bomb go off with a puff? See, this is how they talk. I'm working in the space, man. Ooh. Most of these tweets were purely hateful, written by trolls, right, or concerned people that don't want mentally ill people that haven't anything to do with nuclear weapons. But some respondents explained their opposition, saying they talk about queerness was inserting a non-issue and derailing discussions of nuclear weapons. You think this is real? It's actually, I can't. Oh, we're plumbing the depths here. All of the people commenting showed a keen determination to misunderstand the purpose of the event. While the event received an outpouring of vocal and wide-reaching support from the best-known figures in the nuclear field, the queers are here. It's gonna change everything. Oppenheimer was non-binary. Right, okay. The disparaging tweets illustrated the common belief that queer identity has no relevance for nuclear policy. It can't be real. This can't be real. Please let it be fake. It said that there was a belief that queer identity has no relevance for nuclear policy, and that examining the relationship between queerness and nuclear policy is intended to push a social agenda rather to address substantive issues. During this Pride Month, it just gets worse. During this Pride Month, we would like bulletin readers to understand. I'm a reader, and I'm trying to understand that visible representation and meaningful participation of queer people matters for nuclear policy outcomes. No, it doesn't. There is absolutely nothing that somebody who thinks that being queer matters can bring to the world of nuclear policy. Nothing. Into what they're going to bring. Polite disagreement. Yeah, don't go pushing that button, will you? They're going to push the button. Let's get some poppers and party. Please, stop this. Whoever you are, stop it, because my heart can't take it. It will mean the end for me if you're not careful. They keep pushing this crap, I'm going to die of laughter. Right. Discrimination against queer people can undermine nuclear security and increase nuclear risk. This is insane. Sorry. Whew. And queer theory can help change how nuclear practitioners, experts and the public think about nuclear weapons. I don't particularly think about nuclear. Can you imagine the public all wandering around going, I wonder if those nuclear weapons are okay? Have you thought of the nuclear weapons? It's about people. They say in bold letters here, just so that we know. Equity and inclusion, there it is, equity, and inclusion for queer people is not just a box-ticking exercise in ethics and social justice. It is also essential for creating effective nuclear policy. No, it's not. No, this is from, we've got to remember who it's from, Louise Reitman and Sneha Nair. So Lewis and Sneha. Lewis and Sneha. Well, Lewis and Sneha, I've spoken to a couple of friends, and we've looked at what your work is that you're doing, and we both sat and had a conversation and decided that we're going to put you in a home. Studies in psychology and behavioural science. What's that got to do with nuclear? So you see how this works here now? They're in some arse end of the social sciences, and they're trying to bring it into the serious sciences in STEM, which is what they do. They capture things by praising their template over it. So what you're getting here is a kind of really weird sort of, this is what we're trying to do. Studies in psychology and behavioural science show that diverse teams examine assumptions and evidence more carefully, make fewer errors. As if there are people working at the cutting edge of nuclear weapons that don't know what I'm thinking. Hang on a minute. Before you just assume that if you get this wrong you're going to kill millions, we've got thoughts. That they show diverse teams examine assumptions and evidence more carefully, make fewer errors, discuss issues more constructively, and better exchange new ideas and knowledge. Yep, I don't care. Right? And studies in psychology and behavioural science won't say, no, they don't show that at all. No, they won't. What they show is that diversity of opinion does that. But you don't want that, do you? Because it's all about the representation. As long as those people are seen, you don't care if they're going to screw up STEM, do you? Fewer errors. When the stakes, the whole point of it is, right, that they build frameworks so robust when working in this field, and we have the scientific process, which is pretty robust in itself, and you want to bring in a few, queers who are just going to wave their hands and go, I've got a different opinion on this. Right, okay, so tell me, what's your opinion on how it relates to the field? Well, in my behavioural studies course and during my gender identity lecture, get out of STEM, you weirdos. When the stakes of making best informed decisions are as high as they are with nuclear weapons, governments cannot afford to lose out the human capital and innovational potential of queer people. What, the fact that you call yourself a queer got anything to do with what governments do? The only thing we're interested in is the meritocratic side of this. Are you a brilliant engineer? Are you a brilliant scientist? That's it. What you identify as has got nothing to do with that. You're an identitarian pair of wibblers, and we are going to put you at home. The potential of queer people. No, if you've got potential, I don't care what you are, show your potential. We'll have you and exploit you, make lots of money, make the world a better place. How about that? That's the deal. Shut up about your Anthony's and Bumps and Daisy people. Now, informed by their life experiences, this is the full enchilada, isn't it? Queer people have specific skills to offer that are valuable in policy and diplomacy contexts. LGBTQ plus people often must navigate being different from those around them. Develop, so does everybody else. We're all different. Each individual. They really are weird, aren't they? It's like we're like sort of an amorphous blob. There was a film years ago called Society, a tremendous movie, which was very much about class, actually. And at the end of it, all these wibbly, strange people that could meld into one did this thing called the shunt that was like a great orgy where they all turned into one creature. And then somebody put his hand up somebody's backside and turned him inside out. It was very peculiar, right? Very peculiar, but it was brilliant in terms of its metaphor. They think, get everybody together, we'll all have a shunt. They're just weirdos. It says here, LGBTQ people must often navigate being different from those around them, develop the ability to listen and empathise, and mobilise the skill and perseverance to make themselves heard. Why is that any different from anybody else? Why? It's not. That's what I've had to do in my life. It wasn't because I was gay. Diversity and inclusion are especially important for the policy community dealing with arsenal development and nuclear posture. Women familiar with this nuclear priesthood describe it as male-dominated and unwelcoming. Let me tell you, you incredibly stupid people. Nuclear, building, engineering, STEM, not the social sciences, or which I'm now calling the social studies, not the social studies, which is what they need to be renamed, not art, not the humanities, not the old fluffy, lovely, nice bit, all right, okay? When it comes to STEM, you have to make sure that the individuals you have in front of you are the best of the best meritocratically, and it's got nothing to do with any of this nonsense. Of course, it's male-dominated. Women like people, men like things. As an average. It's not always true. You find a really good female engineer, treasure her. But they're rare, like rock and horse shit. You would have 50-50, which of course would screw the whole thing. Because there aren't that many engineers that are female that are good. In time there might be, but there ain't now. And you're messing with the future, with your ridiculous nonsense. Women familiar, then they bring in women as, it's just, it's, get lost, you LGBTQI Anthony's and Bumps and Daisy nutters. We know what women mean to you. The women familiar with this nuclear priesthood. This is straight out of Fallout. They're called the son of the atom. That's the nuclear priesthood in Fallout. These are kids. They're still kids, mentally. Homogenous groups like this are prone to groupthink. No, it's you. They are what they say they aren't. It's you that's prone to groupthink. This is surreal. And hostile to critical examination of baseline assumptions about how adversaries construct and identify nuclear threats and risks. Here we go, power and oppression, but on a global scale now they're messing with. Hostile to critical examination of baseline assumptions. So again, they don't mean critical thinking, they mean critical social justice. This is the cult at work. In nuclear. Right? Remember the day after tomorrow? Yeah, you get these lunatics in and we're in real trouble. Government's going to have to step in. It says here, for nuclear weapons policy, this has meant the perpetuation of theories like deterrence and crisis stability. Yep, right. It has stopped us from sort of, being on mass mad. We're still mad, but we haven't been on mass mad for a long time, not till you came along. Deterrence and crisis stability, which have contributed to increasing nuclear arsenals and a growing risk of nuclear use. If you think there's a risk of nuclear use now, you should have tried living through the 80s. Or for that matter, the 60s. And the 70s. And the 50s. When it actually was a real bloody threat. When the Cuban Missile Crisis happened, we were so close. So close. Duck and cover, kids. Such workplace cultures also create enormous psychological stress for minority staff. If you have a culture that deals with something as serious nuclear and you can't cope with it, you should be wheedled out and got rid of. End of story. I don't want weaklings and snowflakes screwing around with the atom. While you're too busy splitting your bum cheeks, these people are doing something real. Right. Such workplace cultures create enormous psychological stress for minority staff, including queer people, who spend lots of time and energy adapting to role expectations, rather than focusing on bringing their full authentic potential to the poly. Bring your own self to work! The truth is reflected in the personal experiences of queer officials working on nuclear weapons issues. No. No, it's not. That's not the truth. Jesus Christ. US Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear and Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction Policy recounts, that's Richard Johnson, recounts, feeling inhibited to speak up and contribute in a workplace culture dominated by traditional masculinity that treated homosexuality as a risk factor. What, when? 1940? They're still doing that, then there's a problem. But that's for each individual person to take up, not for you to come in and go, it's okay, we're going to bring in, our happy, clappy, kumbaya, everybody's going to be okay. Oh, and by the way, everything's power and oppression narratives, therefore make sure that you distrust your colleagues. Oh, and bring your whole self to work, because that's what we need in an environment working with nuclear weapons. Somebody lying on the couch, farting and picking their nose. Right, okay. Exclusion creates nuclear security risks. Exclusion and unfair treatment of queer individuals. Right, so the main thing is here, there's no such thing as queer individuals. Right? They're a bunch of tossers. No such thing. And other minorities, they have to get the other minorities in. By a homogenous, cis-heteronormative community of practitioners also creates vulnerabilities in nuclear decision-making. Cis-heteronormativity is the automatic assumption that someone is heterosexual and identifies with the sex assigned at them birth. Why do they see the world like this? They're obsessed with nonsense. It creates the idea that being heterosexual and cisgender is normal and natural, whereas being queer or trans is a deviation. And? What's your problem? We're gay. We aren't the normal, right? We're not normative, as you would call it. We're gay. We're a minority. Or in the case of queer people, we're self-identifying ourselves into a minority so that we can garner some victimhood, then go to university, study a shit subject, and then come out of university and LARP as what we think is what we are, and then try to go into nuclear war research and undermine the very thing that has got you where you are so you can go to university in the first place. You ungrateful pair of shits. All right? Being LGBTQ has historically been considered a security risk akin to the Red Scare anti-communist movement. They're going back 60 years. They are literally deranged ahistoric wibblers. The Lavender Scare was a campaign persecuting and dismissing gay and lesbian federal employees. Nothing to do with being queer. Gay and lesbian is not queer. The linking of homophobia and national security concerns seems to stem from sensationalised case that no, being homophobic in those days and being in somewhere that required national security was a problem because A, it might have been illegal. It doesn't make it right, but it makes it real that they were open to emotional blackmail. That could be serious. That's why it was treated as a security risk. Not because they were gay, because it was illegal to be gay. That's what society decided. They don't know a damn thing. So they're calling that the legacy of queerness. It's got nothing to do with queerness. Queerness has got nothing to do with homosexuality and lesbianism. Nothing to do with it at all. Queerness doesn't even recognise there's sexes. Queerness doesn't recognise sexual orientation exists. What the hell are you two talking about, you bunch of nutters? I can't, but is this an actual proper... I don't know. This has got to be a bleeding... What's that, man? Okay, so I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it for you here so that you can have a look at it. Right, there's a bit more to it than this. In fact, quite a bit more to it. They just don't stop. You have to see it to believe it. You just don't stop it. You just don't stop. Right. And we'll finish with their last paragraph because there's so much more in the middle that I just can't be asked to read it again. However, including the LGBT community in the nuclear field is far more than a social issue campaign. It is up to allies, people in power and the institutions they serve to vocalise their support for LGBTQ plus inclusion. Nobody's excluding you, you wankers! Not just because it is the right thing to do, but also because queer people and add value to nuclear weapons. How do they do that? Go to the auction? $1 million and a dollar. Decision makers should look to LGBTQ plus inclusion for better nuclear policy. No, thanks. We're going to base our nuclear policy on what deranged, deluded people think they can identify as, rather than living their life as a human being and bringing something to the table. No, the gig's up. Not the gig. Do I mean the gig? No, it's not the gig, is it? The jig is up, I think. You're done. Go away. They need to build environments in which queer people can bring their specific skills and lived experiences to bear. Arguments to the contrary are as stagnant and outdated as those who voice them. This is a full-on cult mantra example that's worth keeping. It's a corker. I'll stick it in the doobries. Become a warrior teacher. Let me know your thoughts in the old doobries. Subscribe if you can, and I'll see you later.